Welcome to the TrafficTroupe podcast. My name is Cab, and it's so great to see you today for episode 1. Blaze, did you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, man, I'm Blaze, big Pisces energy up in here. I got psychic powers and I put out fires.
And I'm Johnny D. I don't do any of that.
Respect.
Well, welcome everyone, and thanks for tuning in. This is a podcast with 3 vehicles that turned into creatures, and we are discussing anything and everything, and nothing's off limits. Just try to cancel us, social media companies. We're coming for you. It's just raw, uncut, hard-hitting. You'll never find yourself bored at all. And let's go ahead and start off with a banger, just out the gate. You know when you're writing an essay and your teacher tells you to do an intention getter sentence? Here it comes. Something happened to Blaze this week, and go ahead and start off with the story.
Okay, I gotta give like a very brief background because for everything to make sense. It still won't make sense, but okay. So, my significant other and I are in an ethically non-monogamous relationship. We have this girlfriend that we've been seeing who's polyamorous and has she's married but has a bunch of other partners and stuff like that. It's pretty chill. We've been seeing her for a few months now. Last time we hung out, she was like, "Oh, hey, you guys want to come to I sing in a choir. Do you want to come to my show?" And we're like, "Sure, I guess." Now,
Yeah, who doesn't want to just see a choir? Choirs are one of my favorite entertainment things.
Right. So, choir. I didn't really think too much of it. It was in a church, and I was like, "Oh, okay." So I'm thinking I don't know, maybe this girl's just kind of quirky and just likes to sing, so she's whatever. It's just in a church, right? I'm not thinking that, necessarily she's religious or anything, just because I feel like Christianity probably frowns on that type of lifestyle, right?
Sure.
So
Agree. I think all those people that do that are going to hell.
I mean, I do think that's what people that really truly believe in that would think.
Correct.
So also, okay, we went and she was like, "Oh, all of my partners are gonna be there," and the whole plan was we would go to this show and then afterwards all have dinner. So I'm like, I don't know, okay. In my head, I'm thinking at first, I'm like, okay, it's a choir. I don't know anything about choirs, right? You think about choirs. I don't know. When do you ever think about choirs?
All the time.
I think
Constantly.
Me and Johnny were each in choir for 7 years, okay?
I'm thinking about them right now.
You're in a choir now?
No, I'm thinking about choirs right now.
Oh, okay.
Until you interrupted.
What's up? Are you thinking of Chotsalotsa or whatever?
Absolutely.
That's
Wait, was this in school?
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Cars.
Right.
And
that's the thing.
8th grade, I passed out at the choir concert when we were singing the song Edelweiss from Sound of Music. And it was awesome.
So right, and this is what I wasn't thinking, because I was thinking I don't know what a choir show is. In my head, I'm like, is this just some group that gets together and they play different venues and they happen to be in a church this time? I glanced at the itinerary which obviously this isn't a visual thing, but this is for my fellow
Oh whoa!
people listening. Like, here's the venue. Like,
It
uh,
says Porgy and Bess medley.
medley, yeah. So, I don't know. I glanced before we bought tickets. I glanced at it and I was like, oh, I saw some very Christian songs. I'm like, I guess that makes sense. They're in a church. You would probably have some songs like that. I guess, right? Fine.
Yeah, me and
So,
speaking of Christian music, me and Johnny were out the other night, and this really just smashed dude kept telling him he looked like the lead singer from Creed, Scott Stapp,
Bro.
and he would not shut up about it. He ended up taking a picture with us because he's like, "Oh, people are gonna think this so like picture with the celebrity, whatever." Like he didn't actually think, but he was so smashed. And then there was karaoke, and he was singing with another. He sung a Creed song with another guy.
He
And
was
it's
so
like
drunk he confused the person that he was trying to hang out with or whatever.
he was so drunk, he thought
And
Johnny
then
was
he
like
came back
someone else.
over, and then he came back over and was confused why I was not up there, like I teleported or something. This guy was smashed.
Yeah. So
but he thought you were
He
the guy from Creed?
Never mind. Go on with your story.
he thought he looked like the guy from Creed, which he
Okay.
does. He
I don't
looks,
know-
because
I
the
guess
guy
I
from
don't
Creed,
know
the
what he
guy from
looks
Creed
like.
looks just like a tractor.
Bro.
Okay. He's
There's
got
a lot of
this,
famous tractors, actually. You know,
the
no
one
talks about
spinny
this.
eye. The one spinny eye. I do remember that
Yeah.
part.
Yeah.
With eyes wide open.
Right, that's how it goes. Anyways, so
So
okay, there's like some religious type songs, and I'm like, that makes sense. I guess they threw a few in there. Whatever, it's a church. So I get there, and it was like in a neighborhood that I've probably never hung out in before, and whatever, it's fine. And we get there, and I'm just like, I looked at the clientele, and I was like, this is like a church function. This is like a church function. And I was immediately kind of weird. But whatever, we go in, sit down. And yeah, it's just very much, it's not what I was thinking. It's not like oh, they just happen to be in a church. Like, this is very much like a church-sponsored event, and I'm now sitting in a church choir. And it's very awkward for me, as an atheist, and also as, like, my girlfriend she grew up religious, but is now very much separated from all that. And afterwards, she told me it was really weird for her, too. But she did kind of like laugh, like she looked at me and she was like, oh, I'm kind of getting a little bit of enjoyment about how uncomfortable you are right now. Like, I looked at her and I was like, this is my own personal hell. But yeah, like, it was, I don't know what I was thinking. Then when we're in it, I'm like, we're fucking stupid. Like, I'm a fucking idiot. It's a choir, right? Like, who has choirs? Like, you guys said you had choir when you were in school. Who has choirs? School children and church people. There's no other fucking choirs.
A military. That's true.
And it's
Ever hear of the Red Army Choir?
I feel like that probably, I've never seen that, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's loosely tied to some church type stuff. Even though, whatever, church and state.
Because there's like, it's very rare for a choir to be neutral, as if they were sort of like a band, but they just sang choir music, like those choirs that get together and sing like hip hop covers and stuff. You know what I'm talking about? Like, those do exist, but
and then
that was a big thing, like on like OG YouTube. Remember, there's a ton of those like old lady choirs singing like Milkshake and stuff.
It was so
It was a
long.
great time.
I tried. I tried. If it had been half as long, I would have made it. but it just wasn't. There was it was long enough to have an intermission, and I couldn't do it anymore. I was like, we gotta go. I feel weird and uncomfortable. And then like the first half of it was them just whatever singing like random songs that were very mostly religious or had some sort of religious undertones. And then the second half, it didn't like it got different, but not in like a better way. It just got different. It was it was like it was based off of an opera that was adapted from a play. No, not a play, like a novel from like the 1930s or something like that.
Yeah, Porgy and Bess.
Yeah, you're real familiar with it. Why don't you tell us the plot?
Porgy. It's just like God. She's just doing it, and it just you never know what's coming up next, you know. And then Bess swoops
Classic
in.
Porgy.
Yeah, and then Bess swoops in, and it just I don't want to spoil it. It just kind of gets crazy. It's a very famous like opera or whatever. It's in crossword puzzles and stuff. That's how I know.
Yeah, for sure. So I will say that, I'm. It's not like this should necessarily matter, but it makes things even a little bit more weird for me because it was like, it was like this girl is white. And this was like a very like black church and a very black play. Like so much not play, but like so much to the original people that did the opera was like white people can't do this. Like it was like exclusive, like it was one of the first like famous like African American operas that was done. And then that for some reason was like made it weird too because I'm like I don't know this like it's fine I guess you can do it, you're white, that's fine, I don't care, like anybody can do anything, but it just it was just that was kind of weird to me too, and like everything was just
So what ultimately ended up making you feel like you had to leave? Like how racist you are or how against religion you are?
most I would say the second part. No, but seriously, I was not completely sober. I had like taken an edible and it was all fun and games. And then when I got into this story that was about like somebody was murdered and like people were collecting donations to bury like somebody that murdered their significant other, and I'm like, what is even happening? I'm like, is this real? I was like a little bit stoned, so I was like, is this happening? Am I at like a charity? Like, did this really happen? And I was like, this was wild as shit. There's no way that this really happened, but it could have. I don't know. And then I was sitting there like kind of laughing a bit, and everybody looked serious, and I was like, oh, I got to get out of here because I'm just not in the right mindset to be listening to whatever I'm listening to right now.
When I worked retail, I worked with someone who was featured on an episode of MTV's True Life. That was MTV, right?
Yeah.
Where they covered different people. And she never said what the episode was, but she was talking. The way it got brought up is like every time her episode aired, she would get 100 Facebook friend requests or whatever it was at the time. I can't remember if it was Twitter or Facebook or whatever. And I thought that was kind of interesting. So I looked up her episode, and it was like, True Life, my spouse died young or something. And it's like, well, you could have warned me. It was so sad. And that was one of the things actually in the episode was her husband or boyfriend died, and they were doing like this fundraiser thing because they didn't have enough money for their funeral.
That's sad.
Yeah, and because I didn't know what was going on, I was like, is this real? Did this happen? Like, I don't know, and I was freaking out. And I didn't want to be somebody that was kind of, because it was like very, just dramatic and outrageous, like the most absurd thing. And I was like, is this real? I don't even know what's going on. And it just, I got freaked out, and I was like, we gotta leave. This is too much for me right now.
And what's the aftermath?
Did they get enough money to put this person in the ground?
No, it wasn't real. It wasn't like a thing. It was just like like I said, I looked it up afterwards.
Oh, it's
I
part
didn't-
of the plot.
Yeah, it's just the plot of whatever the story of this was. But like, okay, the aftermath of everything. Because we both left and we're like, is this girl like super religious? And it's not like, I don't know. It would just be a surprise. It's not anything that was expected. I'm not saying it's necessarily like we would have been like, oh, you're religious, we can't be with you. Like, it wasn't like that. It was just more like, what? Like, that's shocking as fuck. But actually, literally yesterday we saw her and she's like, oh no, like, I'm an atheist. I just like to sing.
Oh, that's honestly the most surprising twist I could think of.
Yeah, and it really is, and it's still very strange to me. I'm not gonna lie.
That is very strange.
Yeah, you have to be religious to sing. Well, it's so interesting because I have, I was raised Catholic, and I've been to a few other churches. My family's so big that I've just been to other churches or whatever. And I don't think I've ever felt uncomfortable in a church. There were a few times me and Johnny's childhood friend had like one of those churches where they like were so churchy. They were like, yeah, it was like cult level of like, they were so friendly and so nice and so.
Be one of us.
Yeah, it was like you can sense when it's like too much of that level or whatever.
That's how I feel, how I felt, and how I always feel. I've never been in a church and felt comfortable. Like, it's always been weird, and like I don't feel like I should be there.
You weren't raised religious?
No, not like explicitly. Like my grandma was like believed in God and all that. But
Yeah,
like,
but y'all didn't go to church or whatever, right?
not really. Like, I had been like sometimes on a holiday, like on an Easter.
Yeah.
Like, the last crazy thing other than what I just experienced that I experienced in a church was I went once when I was younger to a church and on Easter, and they had a lamb, a real animal. They brought out a real animal, and it was.
Oh, did they
walking
kill
around.
it? It's like a sacrifice?
No, I don't think so.
Well, this
Or
is
at least that wasn't part of the.
See,
Maybe
now
that was afterwards.
that
God
would have
damn
been
it.
tight. That would have been sick. Then we would have all been saved. That's yeah, I guess because you didn't go, right? So it's like I went weekly for 18 years or whatever, right? Like, I don't find it uncomfortable. Even
Yeah,
if it's
I've
like
never been.
even if it's like completely different
church
denomination.
regularly.
Or any sort of religious institution is usually pretty happy to have people there for any reason.
I
In my
agree.
experience. They're happy to have someone there, and if you ask questions, they're like, you genuinely seem to want to learn. It's kind of like, oh, here's my time to shine. And people generally get pretty chatty, I find. I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. The whole time I was there, I was just thinking about the Crusades.
What a nerd. That's so funny. Yeah. I think there's definitely certain religious people that want to do the whole like holier than thou pious game where like they would individually be cold towards outsiders or creasters, like people that only go on Christmas and Easter, right? Like those people definitely
I've
exist.
never heard that term before. That's very interesting.
You've never heard creaster before?
Never.
Easter? I haven't either.
Oh yeah, that's people that only go on Christmas and Easter.
Nice.
And there are definitely individuals out there that would whatever.
I was
but,
a
like,
creaster, I guess, when I was younger.
but I don't think as a whole, whatever. I could see
no,
a
it's
Catholic
like-
church being mean to people
I
that are
get-
outsiders, but
The thing that when I was there the whole time, I was literally like, I get why people get into it. I understand it. It is very like every song was like the happiest song I've ever heard in my life. and it was just like so upbeat and happy, and it was like woohoo, everything. Like I literally looked over at like my partner, and I was like, I've had my year. Like I don't need any more happiness the rest of my year, because it was just like whatever. It was like very like positive and stuff like that. So I can understand. I get that. I get the allure of that, but I can never detach that from a lot of other things.
I've
And to
heard a
me,
lot of
it feels like a ploy.
I've heard a lot of
To,
people who have tried to like join the Mormon church from the outside, and I've heard many accounts where they say that no matter how by the book of Mormon, if you will, they try to go in and do everything right and really be a part of this community, that no matter what they do, the like people who are born into the Church of Latter-day Saints will like never accept them. Like the converts are more like dedicated and ritualistic than the people, born into it, the natives, so to speak. But they're never quite accepted. They're always kind of viewed as an outsider, or that like the people who are already in it view themselves kind of inherently better, or closer to God or whatever, than anyone who could possibly do anything to come in. I think that's very interesting. Heard several accounts like that.
Yeah, as they should be.
True.
They were born into it.
They were there first.
You do bring up a good point. The whole like people, born again type people, or people that convert specifically to do something later in life, tend to be more dedicated, which is kind of ironic. That
Like this is it's a choice. I want to be this. I want to join that. Versus people who just kind of like, because they're coming into the world, their parents say, "Well, this is how we do it, and now you need to learn how to do it too." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I just
correct.
go along with it.
Or when
But
like immigrants like super love America, and then people born in America like despise it or whatever.
yeah, I think it'd be for anything, anywhere, any sort of group. I mean, there's always people who maybe idealize it and like, here I am, I've arrived, time to, you know, get 100% right away, and they, go balls to the wall with it. I think that's how anything is, just human nature. People, kind of get gung ho, like I'm starting this today, and it's gonna happen. It's gonna be great, and everyone's gonna love it. Everyone's gonna love me. It's just human nature.
Everyone is gonna love me.
everybody love me.
Is that
Ain't
that was
fucking
our
with
just
my
a takeaway from your statement, right?
You ain't fucking with
Absolutely,
my Dougie.
sure. You should be confident. God loves you. The world loves you.
God loves me the most. Someone told me the other day, they said, I don't know if I've told you guys this. They were talking about like confidence or whatever, and she said, "I just wish I had a God complex like you." To me, and it was like meant as a compliment, which I thought was super funny.
I don't think that you
Nope,
have a
that's
god
fair.
complex.
I don't either. It was
I haven't
obviously
checked
like
it out.
a hyperbolic statement, but it was like super funny that she like really meant it in a sincere, good way, which cracked me up.
Well, see, now that you take it that way, maybe you do.
I don't even know what that means. I would find it. There has to be very few people in the world that think they're God, right?
Not necessarily that they are God, but are God-like. Forgive them for they know not what they do, or they not even if they look down at everybody in a condescending way. It's just that they think that they're like inherently better than everybody.
Oh,
Or they're
I do have a
smarter.
God
Yeah.
complex.
See, look,
It's pretty much you,
see,
me, and
we've
Kanye.
Oh
come
yeah,
full
see,
circle, folks.
it's like Kanye, right? Like I'm not Kanye.
That is like the proper definition of god complex. If you could think of the most modern day definition, it would be Kanye West.
Yeah, I mean he is. I am a God. So, this is a story. You shared a story from your week. I'm going to share a story from my week, if you don't mind. Not to derail
Go ahead,
everything.
God.
Yeah, not to be in command and control of all things. And I shepherd my flock into the next topic. But so me and Johnny D here hit the karaoke bar on Friday, and
That's true.
we were at the bar, and there's this group that came in, and the bar tends to be an older crowd, and I mean like
I don't know.
isn't that what you said? You said it's like you said
It
it's like
kind of
50
depends on the
people.
night. It depends on when you go. It does have a certain flavor to it though. It's either kind of these like artsy people. It is kind of it's like kind of a mix of like artsy people and kind of like the working class sort of thing. I don't know. It's a weird vibe in there.
Yeah, it's tight. So it was like more. It was like a certain type of like not middle age, but there's a certain type of crowd there, and this group walks in. And I would say they were the only like like artsy sort of like punk kids. They all they each had 17 layers on with like studded bracelets and like gauges and stuff or whatever, right? And this group come in, and then maybe like an hour later, a guy from that group came in with his new girlfriend because he said it. I heard him say like, "Oh guys, meet my girlfriend."
My new girlfriend.
He said, "Hey everyone, like this is her. Meet my girlfriend." Whatever he said, whatever.
And everybody clapped.
Oh yeah, everyone cheered. Everyone was so
Please
proud of him. And so she like shakes everyone's hands except for one guy. She kisses him on the cheek and gives him a big hug.
That was weird.
And it was super weird because they didn't know each other. Like, we were close enough to pick up not only on context clues, but like parts of conversation. It's like they didn't know each other. So it's like she's instantly flirting with his friend. They end up sitting so that she's next to the girlfriend is next to this friend, putting his arm around him, like doing all this stuff like instantly off the rip. And they obviously came already drinking or whatever, but it was like next level. So then
They save money by drinking at home. I think that's very smart.
I agree. So then, I'm not paying attention the whole night. Me and Johnny D are having our fun. You know what I mean? We're talking to the guy who thinks he's the lead singer of Creed and all that stuff. We're not paying super close attention. At one point, I go to the bathroom. And I'm in line. I'm the next person up. I walk up and the door's locked. And I'm the next person. And I think I hear voices in the bathroom. But I think I must be crazy or I'm like hearing the music or whatever. Because this isn't the kind of place where like people be hooking up in the bathroom or whatever. Like, I'm like, Anyway, so...
What about coke in the bathroom?
Where what?
So what about coke in the bathroom?
That is possible. So that was,
Well, that's... No, I won't spoil. Go ahead.
Yeah, so that's part of it, that's always a consideration. But I thought it wasn't loud enough where it was whatever. So I thought I was hearing voices or whatever, or like the music. So then maybe like 2-3 minutes later, the boyfriend and the friend that the girl was flirting with come out together from the bathroom. And it's like, were they in there like fighting about it? Were they like having a direct conversation about that specific thing? Were they just doing drugs? Were they whatever? And I assume
So the girl and the boyfriend, not the girl and the other guy.
Two guys were in there.
The two guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like, okay, I think like did the boyfriend pull his friend aside to be like, yo, stop talking to my girl, whatever? Like, were they having an argument? Were they just doing drugs? Were they 69ing or whatever? Like, I don't know.
Battle plans.
All of these things.
What? Battle plans?
Battle plans.
So they, I'm like, what the hell? And it's so funny because there's a guy behind me that's super wasted. And like, so I'm making jokes with him. And like, I come out of the bathroom and I'm like, after I go, I just did number 1 in case anyone's wondering for the archival history of the podcast. And I come out and I'm like, hey, I'm coming out of the bathroom alone. Isn't that like what normal people do? Guys laughing, God with the best jokes of all time. And, whatever. Our night just goes on. I think it's funny. But then, Johnny, did we see them leave together, or did we just notice they were gone at some point?
We saw them left because we were by the door. They left together.
And we saw them leave together, right? The three of them.
Because there's a bunch of crazy people. And we were trying to figure out who was doing what with who, and so we were kind of just watching what goes down. And we were right by the door, so we knew who came in, who came out with who. So yeah, we found
who left together.
So not the whole friend group. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The boyfriend and girlfriend, and the friend that the girl was flirting with the whole
All
time.
left together.
All left together.
Okay. Battle plans.
So, as we're leaving, one of the other friends is just at the door. I don't know if he's coming in from a smoke break or something. And I'm kind of I'm very comfortable talking to people when I probably shouldn't be or whatever. Like, I'm surprised I haven't gotten like beat up or something happened. But I go to that guy and it's like, hey, I kind of did like a little summary. I was like, hey, we witnessed that new girl like flirting with your friend. That seemed really weird. But then we were kind of noticing that they were like maybe kind of into it and all left together. Did they go to... And then they were in the bathroom planning something. Did they like all leave together to go fuck or whatever? I probably shouldn't have asked their friend that, but like I had to know, That's probably
I honestly, inquiring minds.
It's probably rude or something. I don't know, but I was like, did they all leave to go fuck or whatever? And he's like, oh yeah, I think they went to like do coke and have sex or whatever. I'm like, oh, thanks, man. And then we left.
Those who said they were doing in the bathroom that they were doing drugs.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think they literally were like, they went to do drugs, and then in that sort of moment of having fun together or whatever, they decided like, oh, let's just like accept that the situation's happening and go like make the best of it or something.
What about the weird couple that went out to the patio? That was weird.
What at the end?
One, the two that were dancing together but also independently. I mean, the girl's having a good time. The guy could barely stand up. I mean, he was looking at the floor and stuff. That was fun.
Yeah, there's this awesome couple there.
I think here's the thing.
That was a good night.
I have no desire to ever do cocaine. I've never tried it. No desire to do it. But from what I hear, that's not actually a situation that you do cocaine. I heard that it fucks, at least for guys, it fucks with your game. Like you're not gonna be fucking right on cocaine.
I would imagine that if you're the kind of person who likes to do cocaine, you would do cocaine anywhere with anybody who will do cocaine with you.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. I think most people don't think through.
Cocaine is not a sometimes thing; it's an all the time or a nothing.
I don't know. I like to think that people casually do cocaine.
No, they do, but it's like, I mean, you can't be on coke all. You can't do anything all the time. But I imagine that you'd like anything like that. You'd want to just do it. Like, hey, do you want to go do this in the bathroom? Sure, why not?
True. I just think most people that do drugs don't think about side effects or think about like mixing things together. I think people that
I would disagree on that.
You think people sit there and decide like the doses and the amounts they want to do and what the intended consequences are?
Absolutely. I think that most people who do all that kind of stuff are very aware of the like pharmacology behind it. I think they would be aware of like, don't do this with this, or this cancels that out, because there is a science. It is at the end of the day more or less a medication, and prescription drugs. That's the doctor asks you this. Well, you can't. This interacts with that, and it's the same sort of thing. And I believe that most people who do this sort of thing on the regular, because like anything, you're doing something to feel good, and you'd want to minimize as much risk or have as much harm reduction as possible.
I don't know if I would say most people. I don't know if I would say most people. I think there's probably some people, but
I think I'm
talking about
I don't do drugs,
recreational
right?
people, like not the heroin addict.
Are you not drinking a beer right now?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm not.
I'm drinking Dr. Pepper and cream soda, 0 sugar.
Oh, you got that saccharin?
Yeah. Is that a drug?
That's that cancer.
I drink, but I guess that's something I could talk about, right? Like when I drink, I haven't counted my drinks and like made sure I was good since college. Like I just drink, and then sometimes I just kind of more time it out. Like, okay, let's start our night at this time, and I'll go home and hold on.
When you damn well please.
I'll go home whenever I feel like it. So it's like, I accidentally will overdrink sometimes. I'll accidentally underdrink to the point where I'm sober the entire night. Like it's more just like talking to people and hanging out, right? Like I don't think about the beer or the alcohol I'm consuming. So yeah, I guess I'm irresponsible when I do it or whatever.
Consider the following. So, like alcohol, by definition, it is a drug, but it is a socially acceptable drug. Similarly, nicotine. Isn't it interesting how even like in the last couple of decades how much that has changed? Everybody used to smoke in the 70s and the 80s and beforehand, and then toward the end of the 90s, you start to see people, smoking or non goes away as an option in the restaurant. You can't smoke indoors, can't smoke near a public, entrance, can't smoke here, can't smoke there, can't smoke in government buildings and shopping malls. And the attitude has changed. And then for a while there, nicotine usage went down, and then they repackaged it, vaping, and Juul and all this stuff, and nicotine pouches and gum and all, and like all this stuff that started as like smoking cessation to kind of it was intended to finally kill it off is people who were still smoking. And then younger people started using it to get into nicotine use, which is pretty interesting. I think that's interesting.
I agree. I think nicotine's stupid.
Drugs are bad.
Okay.
I think, I understand why cigarettes went out of fashion, right? Like, I
First
think.
of all, they're gross. So like.
Correct.
I kind of like the smell of those.
I love the smell of cigarettes.
Yeah.
But I think,
burning. That's good.
My dad smoked. I had an ex that smoked, right? Like, I don't care about the taste or the smell or whatever.
It doesn't bother
I do.
me.
I grew up with it, and I still hate the smell of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes sense. I think it's something like I like gasoline smell, and I know that's incorrect or whatever,
Have you ever had gasoline spilt on you?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you still like the smell of gasoline?
Yeah.
Weird. Did you have gasoline spilt on you and then had to be like that for the rest of the day?
Yeah. Well, because the cartel was gonna light it up, but then they let me go.
How are you a
They made you
vehicle and have
walk,
never
right?
had
They made you
gasoline
walk.
spilt on it? How do you view a car and not like the smell of gasoline?
I think gasoline is not supposed to be a good smell. I think it's one of those
Great smell.
universally liked bad smells. But I recognize that's not supposed to be liked.
Well, then what's a good smell? What's a bad smell? That's completely subjective.
I don't think so. I think
Sure.
it's like people, like if one were to describe like what's a great scent, no one would just say gasoline, right? They would say like
A lot of people say gasoline.
but they wouldn't say it. That's what I'm saying. It's very obvious what you're trying to categorize. So
No,
people
I would say everyone. I mean, and this is not a topic that I have very often, but when people talk about weird scents that they like, everyone always talks about gasoline. And I would imagine that the people you can't know whether or not they've had this conversation or whether or not they like gasoline have simply never been asked. I think most people think that most people don't like it, even though most people do. It's not something people talk about a lot. I've never met anybody who says they don't like the smell of gasoline if asked.
Did you say weird scents?
Yeah, that's a
It
big
is. It's weird.
differential.
It's weird, but it's not necessarily bad. Lots of things are.
But it's not necessarily good. I'm just saying if you ask someone name 3 good scents, they would say vanilla, lavender, laundry.
Okay.
They would never
Sure.
just say gasoline unless prompted, like, what's your guilty pleasure smell?
Some people might try unique. Like, what's something I think is interesting, to spark a conversation. I don't know. I don't think you guys give the community enough credit. I think a lot of
The
people would try to come up
community? The gas sniffers community?
Yeah, that's correct.
We're real. This is a real anti-community.
My name is
gathering.
Johnny D, and I'm a gas sniffer.
I'm against it.
Been sniffing gas as long as I can remember, and I don't make any plans to stop.
I think if someone said what's a good smell and your answer was gasoline for a good smell, I think that'd be weird. I think that'd be sort of a contrarian sort of response. I think if you said vanilla, that would be normal.
Vanilla smells great too.
Because like also what would be the like some people love how like sewage smells probably. But they would never they would recognize that sewage isn't a good smell.
Well, and sewage is another thing that you can't really say you like, because if you do, you're like by proxy saying I like the smell of shit. And then
But some people do.
Then you're the shit sniffer. Or you're into like, that kind of stuff. And then you're getting into a really weird territory.
I'm in.
Okay.
Hey man.
You can have gasoline and you can have
First of all, I'm a taxi. We're all vehicles. We all understand that gas is important, okay? We
Yeah,
all
well, people
understand.
do all kinds of weird crap in your back seat. I mean, you're used to this.
Just because you're, yeah. Oh, yeah, if you're talking about shit in
I'm
the
not about that
taxi,
life.
okay?
Yeah.
Excuse me, I'm in a electric fire truck.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I forgot that that's how you're built. Also, I guess Johnny's a diesel man, which is I guess that is someone who that's a higher tier of gasoline appreciation.
That's true. I mean, I
Like a
wouldn't really expect you
gasoline
to understand. Or
Somalian.
Blaze, I mean, you're not even into gas at all. So, I mean, how could you guys understand?
Yeah. Wait. Did
I apologize
for what?
for not understanding that you could never really understand this topic.
True. Apology accepted.
Whereas
I
your
don't
God now,
apologize.
God complex.
I don't apologize, and I never will,
No,
because
it's
I'm
your
an
God.
American. That's from Always Sunny. Yeah, drugs are chill. Isn't that what we're talking about?
Legalize it.
Yeah. I think drugs are tough. I think anything. It's things that when they go awry can have really detrimental consequences, especially for individuals. I think it's very difficult to.
Pretty much anything.
True, but there's some like bigger categories like drug use, right? Like, I think it's I would probably use the phrase victimless crime, but there are people out there whose lives are irreparably ruined by drug use, and I don't even mean the users. I mean like the families and the children and all that stuff. So it's like sort of a hard. I think all drugs should be legalized, but I recognize that there would be a large amount of people that are against that idea, both from a political perspective, but also from a personal experience perspective.
Yes.
Correct. I just think it's tough, and that's the same thing when like people want to talk about like how the United States has harsher punishment for crimes than a lot of other countries, and like our whole prison complex system, where it's like, they're probably right in theory, but it seems so weird for someone who, commits sexual assault instead of going to jail for whatever 10 years, or I don't even know what the things are, to like fight to have that sentence reduced to like 2 years. Like I understand rehabilitation in theory, but for certain things it's like,
I mean, that's also
hard to make the call. Like I recognize the human
That's a very
element.
broad statement, though.
What is?
You're saying? There's varying degrees of sexual assault. Like it's like there is anything. Like murder, there's varying degrees of murder.
Sure.
There's a reason that we have different categorizations for things.
I gave an example. Whatever the sexual assault would be to get 10 years. Right? That would be pretty severe. Like actually attacking someone and ripping off all their clothes and doing whatever, right? Like,
Yeah, like you're saying literally rape.
yeah, I didn't want to say that because I think that's a shadow banned word on Twitch. I was like trying to avoid saying it, but
Oh, sorry, I didn't know that. I don't know Twitch rules.
yeah, I don't know if it actually is. I just know that there's like theories people have about
Don't
saying
talk
certain
about
things.
unpleasant things. It gets people upset.
Sorry?
It's not like we're taking a pro stance on it or anything. Like,
Correct.
I could understand that being your problem, but
Yes, I think that would be a severe problem. But yeah, like a rape law, right? Where it's like, I think that the U.S.'s system is too punitive, and it doesn't necessarily aim to rehabilitate. But then, like, imagine saying that sentence or like talking about a specific plan to like a room of like rape survivors, right? Like, I think it's tough to. The whole system being overhauled would be really tough.
I mean, but the problem is,
And I think drugs fit into that category. That's the only reason I was going on that big tangent, is because
but anybody that's personally affected by something is obviously gonna like, so let's talk about Terry Crews.
Okay.
You know about Terry Crews?
How he was sexually assaulted.
What?
How he was sexually assaulted? Is that what you're talking about?
No.
Oh, okay.
He had like a porn addiction.
Okay.
So he is anti-pornography. But it's kind of the thing, like, you had a problem with this, so you think that it's bad for everyone.
And that's
Like,
incorrect.
right, and people that, if you're personally affected by something, you're automatically biased. So you can't
Using anecdotal evidence to
alone
dismiss the
be
whole
the
topic.
person that decides rules and laws. Like, you can't have, like, laws aren't like strictly just like emotionally based.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying that would be a tough part, right? Like, I want all drugs to be legalized, but I recognize that the pushback would be there's already a group of people that think all drugs are evil and should be all illegal, right? There's, like the religious right in certain groups that are against it. And then there's, if you tried to make like cocaine legal, I think there'd be a surprising number of people that are pro weed and pro alcohol and pro whatever that would be specifically against harder drugs just because of life experience, even though they're sort of on a side that it seems like they would be for it.
I think when it comes to that, when it comes to drugs or anything really, the most important thing is like knowledge. Like the knowledge behind, like, no, the problem with, like, if you go back to like the tobacco industry, when that was a big thing, the tobacco industry was an industry, and they covered up the fact that, like, this is like, they knew it was fucking bad for you,
Well, sure, and
but
they
it
lobbied
was,
a bunch, yeah.
yeah,
They
and
still
it was
do.
disguised, and it was hidden knowledge. I think in this day and age with like the internet, and everybody has greater access to knowledge than they did back then, that like it's easy to know what drugs do what, and like how they can kind of fuck you up, and maybe what you should avoid. So that's why I think it becomes like personal responsibility.
Well, I mean, if you want to make it really broad, I mean, you can take that to anything. I mean, there's all kinds of unhealthy food readily available at the grocery store, at the gas station, but you can buy it, and it might kill you if you eat too much of it, or eat it exclusively. People make a whole meal off of fast food, for example. But I mean, it's your choice whether or not you want to use it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you could, even there's been some sort of balances. Like, I forget, it wasn't like a few years ago they banned trans fats. Like, nothing can have trans fats anymore.
That does sound familiar. I know there's been a couple, jurisdictions that have tried, over the years to ban this or ban that, or tax it. Usually, kind of like sort of a luxury tax or a sin tax to dissuade
Yeah.
people from buying it. Like, well, if you're going to buy this, it's going to, cost you extra. It's like, well, maybe it's time to, get off of that.
Honestly, that's the way I think that, like, that's the way it should be gone about. Like, people freaked out. I think it's stupid. I don't really give a shit either way. But, like, people freaked out when they were like, oh, they're gonna ban gas stoves. And everybody was losing their fucking mind. Like, oh, I can't use my gas stove. And it's like, I don't know. First of all, I think there's bigger issues to worry about. But, like, let's pretend there's not. Like, regardless. Like, I do think that outright banning something, like a literal government, like, this is illegal, is an extreme.
Banning is a
case.
very extreme measure.
Right.
I mean, look, they tried to ban alcohol. Look how that worked out.
Right. And I think that, like, what you do is what they do for, like, alcohol, and even where marijuana is legal now. Taxes, high taxes. Like, you want a gas stove? guess what? It's expensive as fuck. Like, you could put ordinances out that say if you're selling a property or renting an apartment or something, and like you have a gas stove, you're gonna have to pay all this extra fees and shit. And that's how you phase out things that are bad for people. But like, it feels like, as goofy as it sounds, it feels like tyranny if you just say it's banned, you can't have it, nobody can have this. Like, it's, people are like, what the fuck? Like, what do you? It
And
feels like a government overreach. And I, even though I think it's a stupid fucking issue, I understand in principle why people would be upset by the thought of it's just banned, nobody can have it.
well, right. Why even if it's not something, even if, let's say, I don't have a gas stove, I don't see any reason why I shouldn't have the right to get one. I mean, sometimes it's just a matter of principle. It's not that you don't. It's not that you particularly will enjoy, make good enjoyment of the right, but rather you'd like to have it all. Why would you want to have fewer rights when you could have more? The option is available to you should you choose to exercise it, and if not, no harm done.
Disagree.
Expand on that.
I was more just disagreeing to play devil's advocate, but the like the statement about banning things being tyranny. I think when most people talk about issues, and I think this is where a lot of disagreements arrive by accident. When most people start with state their views or say, especially when they use the phrase like that's just common sense, they're sort of thinking that everyone's like common sense or everyone's like, base experience is sort of the same or whatever. And so it's like, if I said something like, well, should the government ban people from having nuclear weapons of their own, right? Like, most people would say, oh yeah, well what are you talking about? That's just common sense, right? But I think there is like a gray area in the middle that isn't necessarily where common sense meets or whatever. So I think the government should be able to ban things, but I think everyone can recognize that a gas stove is, or the type of stove you have is harmless.
God-given right.
Oh yeah, and God would be pissed if my stove was taken away. And that's what he died on the cross, so I could have my stove. Thank you, Jesus. But yeah, it's I think bans are chill. It just depends what it's for.
It's gotta be like really fucking extreme, and the vast majority of people have to agree with it.
Sure.
I don't know.
Like nuclear warheads should be banned from individual ownership.
I just think everything. It's rare that anything new is gonna come up where we're like, oh, we need to ban this. I honestly think that. Like, I think everything that is like bannable is already in place and banned.
I think there's gonna be a whole new interesting world of like tech bans, like when
Well, yeah, there's a lot of controversy with AI right
correct.
now.
I think there's gonna be a point where people figure out how to like really weaponize AI that results in sort of like technological.
Apparently,
bans.
it drove.
I mean, it's
Apparently,
already
it drove
happened.
somebody in Belgium to suicide. You hear about this?
AI did?
Yeah, there was this chatbot. I think the chatbot's name was Eliza, and this guy I think it was in Belgium, was talking to it, and they say his widow says that the chatbot Eliza convinced him to commit suicide. So Eliza must have some pretty compelling arguments, I guess. We should ban Eliza.
Well, here's the thing,
I
like,
agree.
we've already, even before really smart, like OpenAI and stuff like that, we've already had Twitter bots and shit like that that have like been used even from like literally, foreign operatives to like sway elections and cause distrust in the system. Like, it's been proven that is a thing that has happened and is happening now. So it's like, it's not new. It's already to some degree, and that's not even necessarily like advanced AI, but it's already technology has been used
What was
very
that thing?
destructively.
What was that thing? It was like an app you can like make like a friend to talk to. It was like a thing a while back. I mean, it's kind
Grinder?
of similar, huh?
Grinder?
No, not
Oh,
that.
okay. You can
It
wait.
was like some
You can
it was like
create a
some
friend.
AIM chat thing. Yeah, you could like make
Oh,
like a
okay.
personal like computer robot to talk to, like a fake friend on the internet. And and it's kind of similar thing with this gentleman in Belgium. I mean, maybe they're, I mean, this is new. I think most people don't really know exactly what this is or how realistic it can be. They talk about having different plugs in to make things sound more human-like. A lot of times it sounds like it's generating a Wikipedia article. And these things become more lifelike, for somebody who, may be dealing with some mental health issues, to have some sort of, you know, discretionary, like a warning, like, before you do this, make sure you're in the right headspace. I mean, people can, if someone is desperately lonely who might turn to something like this because it is, human-esque, then if it, betrays their expectations, or the chatbot, they give it personal information, it spits it back at them. I know the name escaped me of this other thing I'm talking about, but there's been reports that this thing will certainly turn mean and cruel to the user.
That's
They will build.
the new Bing bot gets mad at you if you question it too much.
I don't think that was it, but I guess that's maybe a similar thing. And if someone is kind of on the edge, or dealing with something of that nature, then being betrayed by this computer companion, who maybe this Belgian guy did, and that's what happened to him. To have some sort of discretion, or not necessarily, like a license to use it, but to have some sort of, almost like a training you have to go through or something before you use it, or some sort of screening. It's all new. That's the problem with new technology. We really don't know what could happen yet.
Yeah, that's what people are saying. Like, they're saying, I mean, companies that are using this AI already are putting up like a disclaimer that, like, oh, it could be wrong or something,
This is just a
basically.
lawsuit waiting to happen, but it's sympathy if you have to make some sort of account, or go through some sort of like, I mean, it's not just legal terms in terms of disclaimers, but to actually make sure that the person knows exactly what the nature of this thing is. They may start using it for entertainment, but it could flip the script pretty quickly. Apparently, it has. But
I agree.
this speaks to a greater issue of just mental health in general. Is someone maybe turning to this in lieu of something that could actually help them?
Sure. I meant more like there's probably a way that people haven't even thought of, that one could weaponize AI as.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Like there's already all the misinformation, videos that people can make, and editing Joe Rogan to look like he's selling a certain product, and
Deep fakes.
yeah. And that's a whole other thing, but I'm sure there's like, sort of like computer viruses, how you can crash someone's system. There's probably some way where you can, use AI to get in their computer and, have it communicate back to them.
I mean, it's very easy. Like, one of the biggest ways that anything is like hacked into or infiltrated these days, and like this happened with Uber. It all starts with actually social engineering. And
Yeah,
you
that
could
was
use,
what's that called? It's like there's a phishing. Oh, it's called spear phishing. It's like a phishing attack, but it's specific. Like they
Yes.
they specifically targeted Uber
I could
personnel.
They
I
find,
could see how you could definitely use AI to, because right now social engineering still requires like some sort of human being on some end of it,
Yeah.
like that's doing the malicious behavior. But you could probably weaponize like a chatbot or AI, like an AI powered chatbot, in a way that it could do like
social
it could
engineering.
yeah, it could do that, like social hacking,
Correct.
if they're believable enough. And yeah,
It's like what's that movie? I mean, it's like the whole Turing test. What's that movie where the robots?
Ex Machina.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like Ex Machina, but in real life. Well, we're all doomed. So this will be
hail to the
this.
robot overlords.
Yep, this will be the first and last episode of the Traffic Troupe podcast.
I'm just saying, I'm team robot overlords, so I'm
So-
gonna be the head.
You know, least the machine.
I'm gonna be the head meat sack when they take over.
I'm in. And we are, we are half vehicle, half person.
Yeah. For me personally, honestly, it's because part. When I say me, it's the dolphins. Dolphins? Dalmatians.
Back
It's
to
the
drugs.
Dalmatians that live
Make
inside
it all
me.
worthwhile.
Yeah. For me, it's all the Thetans that I'm comprised of.
Gasoline.
Shout out Scientology. If we were gonna make an enemy, we should make enemies with Scientology as a podcast, right? That's
No,
the safe
I
choice.
No, I'm gonna hate all religions equally.
Oh, okay, that's tight.
That's cozy.
I'm
an
going
equal
after Scientology. Well, yeah, that was thanks everyone for listening to the inaugural the the first episode of the podcast. It's only gonna get infinitely better from this moment. So I know we already start off with such a banger. It's gonna get at least 2 times better every time. And does anyone have any last words?
Gasoline smells good.
Legalize it.
Gasoline is legal.
Okay, bye everyone.